They called us the best detectives in Brooklyn. Not the most liked, not the most famous, the best. We cleared cases no one else could clear. We found witnesses no one else could find. We made confessions happen without laying a hand on anyone. That was the trick, you see. You never had to touch someone if you already knew where they slept. My name is Michael Verone. I served 22 years with the New York City Police Department. I served 8 years in federal prison after that. And I am telling you this now because the statute of limitations on honesty does not exist inside a man's own head. I was partnered with Danny for 11 years. Danny Rizzo. He was loud where I was quiet. He was visible where I stayed in the background. He laughed easily and drank heavily and made everyone feel like they were his oldest friend. I handled the paperwork, the wiretap summaries, the witness statements, the tiny details that build a case brick by brick. Danny handled the rooms. He could walk into a social club in Bensonhurst and walk out with a confession before lunch. Not because he threatened anyone, because he made people believe he was already on their side. That was Danny's gift. He didn't break people. He convinced them to break themselves. And I watched him do it for more than a decade without ever asking how he learned the skill. I grew up in a house where my father worked 3 jobs and never complained once. He was a postal carrier. 42 years. Same route, same shoes, same silence at the dinner table. He believed in institutions, the post office, the church, the police department. He believed they were built by good people to protect ordinary families from the chaos that waited outside the front door. I joined the academy because he was proud of me for the first time in my life. I wore the uniform because it made me feel like I belonged to something larger than myself. And for the first 7 years, that feeling never wavered. Then I met Danny. Danny came from a different kind of family. His uncle was a made man in the Lucchese family. His cousin did 4 years for racketeering. His father ran a legitimate plumbing business that somehow never seemed to generate enough taxable income. But Danny passed the background check because the department needed bodies. And because Danny was smart enough to keep his mouth shut about where he came from. He told me the truth 6 months into our partnership. We were sitting in an unmarked car at 2 a.m, rain on the windshield, coffee going cold, staking out a warehouse in Red Hook that never produced anything worth watching. "My uncle wants to meet you," Danny said. I asked why. Danny smiled. "Because he likes smart people, and you're the smartest cop I know." I should have said no. I should have driven back to the precinct and requested a new partner the next morning. But I didn't. The meeting happened at a restaurant on Mulberry Street. White tablecloths, heavy silverware, wine served in glasses that cost more than my monthly rent. Danny's uncle was an old man with soft hands and hard eyes. He wore a suit that fit perfectly and spoke in a voice that never rose above a murmur. "You're the detective who closed the Giordano case," he said. I nodded. That was impressive work. The family appreciated how quietly you handled it. I didn't ask which family. I already knew. He slid an envelope across the table. Thin, cream-colored, no markings. "For your trouble," he said. I didn't open it that night, but I didn't refuse it either. And that was the line I never should have crossed. Not the money, the acceptance. The arrangement started slowly. A name here, an address there, a heads up about a pending indictment before the target even knew they were being investigated. Nothing violent, nothing direct, just information moving from my desk to Danny's phone to his uncle's ear. I told myself I was just helping Danny manage his complicated family relationships. I told myself I wasn't taking sides. I told myself a lot of things. The money kept arriving. Envelopes, cash, sometimes left in the glove compartment of my personal car, sometimes slipped inside a jacket pocket during a handshake. I stopped counting after 30,000. Not because the amount didn't matter, because counting would have made it real. And I wasn't ready for reality yet. My father died in 1989. Lung cancer. 6 weeks from diagnosis to burial. I sat beside his hospital bed on the last night. He was too weak to speak, too medicated to recognize me. But he grabbed my hand at 3 a.m, squeezed once, hard. Then he let go. I never told him what I had become. I never told anyone. But at the funeral, Danny's uncle showed up. 3rd row, dark suit, no flowers. He sat through the entire mass and left before the burial. That was the moment I understood I wasn't just helping anymore. I belonged to them. And belonging is harder to escape than fear. Danny and I became famous inside the department. Not famous in the way patrol officers become famous for bravery. Famous in the way detectives become famous for results. We cleared homicides that had gone cold for years. We flipped witnesses no one else could reach. We built cases that sent made men to federal prison without a single bullet fired. The commissioner gave us a commendation. The mayor shook our hands at a press conference. The newspapers called us the Golden Boys of Brooklyn. No one knew that half our cases came from information we received from the very families we were supposed to be destroying. We arrested low-level soldiers to protect captains. We fed the FBI misleading intelligence to keep witnesses alive. We played every side against every other side, and we never lost a single night of sleep. The first murder was an accident. That's what I told myself for years. An informant named Jerome knew too much. He had been feeding us intelligence for 2 years. Good intelligence, reliable intelligence, the kind that puts people away for decades. But Jerome also had a drug problem and a mouth problem. And one night, after too much of both, he mentioned Danny's uncle by name in a bar full of strangers. Danny got the call at 3 a.m. I watched his face change as he listened. "They want the address," Danny said. I gave it to him. I didn't ask what would happen. I didn't warn Jerome. I didn't do anything except open my notebook and recite the street name and apartment number I had written down 6 months earlier. Jerome was found in the trunk of a stolen car 3 weeks later. The medical examiner ruled it a drug-related homicide. The case went cold the same day, and I went back to work like nothing had happened. After Jerome, the requests changed. Not just information anymore. Access. Danny's uncle wanted to know the location of a federal witness in protective custody. He wanted the schedule of a grand jury foreman. He wanted the home address of a prosecutor who was getting too close to something the family wanted buried. I provided everything. Not because I was afraid, because I had stopped feeling afraid years ago. Fear requires imagination. It requires the ability to picture consequences. And I had trained myself so thoroughly to see people as data points that consequences no longer generated images in my mind. A witness wasn't a person with children and a mortgage and a fear of the dark. A witness was a file number, an address, a problem to be managed. That's the real corruption. Not the money, not the lies. The disappearance of imagination. Danny and I developed a system. I handled the intelligence, wiretaps, confidential informants, surveillance logs. Everything that passed through the Organized Crime Control Bureau crossed my desk before it went anywhere else. Danny handled the delivery. He would take the information to his uncle personally. No phones, no paper trail. Just two men sitting in a parked car having a conversation that never officially happened. The payments grew larger. $4,000 a month, plus bonuses for special requests. I bought a house on Long Island, a boat, a second car. Things my father never could have afforded on a postal worker's salary. My mother asked once how I managed to save so much money. I told her I was good at my job. She believed me. That was the worst part of all of it, not the lies I told strangers, the lies the people who loved me swallowed without chewing. There was a young woman named Teresa. She was a witness to a shooting outside a social club in Queens. She saw everything: the shooter's face, the license plate, the getaway driver's nervous hands on the steering wheel. The prosecution needed her. The defense wanted her dead. Danny's uncle offered $50,000 for her current address. I had it in my notebook. Safe house, Orange County, fictitious name, 24-hour protection from the U.S. Marshals. I gave Danny the information on a Tuesday. Teresa was found in a ditch on Thursday. I attended her funeral in plain clothes, sat in the back row, watched her mother collapse at the gravesite. Then I went back to the precinct and closed the case file. I wrote, "Witness uncooperative," in the final report. No one questioned it. No one ever questioned anything. You learn to compartmentalize. That's what they don't tell you about double lives. They don't tear you apart. They organize you. Morning, husband, father, homeowner. Afternoon, decorated detective, golden boy, hero. Evening, informant, facilitator, access point. Each version of yourself occupies a different room in the same house, and you learn never to open the doors between them. I kissed my wife goodbye every morning and meant it. I helped my son with his algebra homework and enjoyed it. I mowed the lawn. I attended church on Christmas and Easter. I donated to the local food pantry. And in the spaces between those things, I helped murder people. The human mind can hold more contradictions than anyone wants to admit. That's not a weakness. That's a design feature. The end came because of a man named Salvatore. Salvatore was a captain in the Gambino family who decided he wanted to cooperate with federal prosecutors. He was facing life. He had nothing left to lose. Danny's uncle was terrified. Salvatore knew everything: where the bodies were buried, who ordered them buried, who helped dig the holes. Danny came to me with a request. Not for information this time, for participation. They want us to handle it ourselves, Danny said. They want to make sure there's no mistake. I asked what "handle it" meant. Danny looked at me for a long time. "Pull him over. Take him somewhere quiet. End it." I said no. For the first time in 11 years, I said no. Danny didn't argue. He just nodded, walked away, made a phone call I couldn't hear. The next morning, my wife found a bullet on her nightstand. No note, no explanation, just a single round of 9mm ammunition placed exactly where I would see it when I reached for my coffee. I called Danny. "You need to understand something," he said. "You're not a civilian anymore. You haven't been for a long time." I asked what that meant. "It means there's no door. There's just the room you're in and the room you're going to. And you don't get to pick which one comes next." I helped them find Salvatore. Not because I wanted to. Because I had spent 11 years building a cage around myself. And I had forgotten where I left the key. Salvatore was pulled over on the Belt Parkway at 9:47 p.m. Danny was behind the wheel of an unmarked Ford. I was in the passenger seat. We were both dressed in plain clothes with badges clipped to our belts. Salvatore saw the badges and relaxed. That's the part I still dream about. The way his shoulders dropped when he realized we were police. The way he smiled and reached for his license. The way he said, "Thank God," when he rolled down his window. He thought we were there to protect him. We were there to execute him. Danny fired first. 2 shots through the open window. Center mass. I fired second. 1 shot. The temple. The whole thing took less than 4 seconds. We drove away before anyone heard the noise. Salvatore's body was found the next morning by a jogger. The case was assigned to our precinct, and I was the lead detective. I wrote the report. Unknown subjects, possibly drug-related. No witnesses. No leads. I filed it, closed it, forgot it. That's what I told myself. But I didn't forget anything. The memory of Salvatore's smile stayed with me longer than any other image from my career. Longer than the crime scenes. Longer than the autopsies. Longer than the funerals. Because he trusted us. And we killed him because of it. That's not murder. That's something else. Something worse than murder. Betrayal of trust isn't a crime in the legal code, but it's the only crime that matters in the end. We retired 6 months apart. Danny went first. A quiet ceremony at the precinct. Handshakes, speeches, a gold watch from the commissioner. I followed 3 months later. Same ceremony, same handshakes, same watch. We moved to Florida. Different neighborhoods, same silence. I thought distance would fix everything. I thought time would erase the debt. I was wrong about both. The FBI came for us in 2004. Not because of Salvatore, because of a mobster named Gaspipe, who was facing the death penalty and decided to trade everything he knew for a bed in a federal medical center. He gave them names, dates, locations. He gave them us. The arrest happened at sunrise. I was making coffee in my kitchen when I heard the knock. 3 uniformed agents, badges visible, hands resting on holsters. "Michael Verone, you're under indictment for racketeering, conspiracy, and 8 counts of murder in the first degree." I didn't resist. I didn't speak. I just looked at my wife standing in the doorway of our bedroom. Her face was the color of the walls. Her hands were shaking. She asked me if it was true. I didn't answer, because the truth would have required words I had spent 20 years training myself not to say. And I didn't know how to find them anymore. The trial lasted 7 weeks. Danny sat at the defense table beside me. Same posture, same silence. Same invisible wall between who we had been and who we had become. The prosecution played wiretaps, showed photographs, called a parade of former mobsters who described our arrangement in more detail than I remembered providing. I didn't testify. Neither did Danny. Our lawyers argued we were just doing our jobs, that we gathered intelligence from unreliable sources, that none of the witnesses could be trusted. The jury deliberated for 11 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge spoke for 20 minutes before sentencing. He called us the most intelligent and most cynical betrayal of public trust he had ever witnessed. He said we had weaponized the badge. He said we had turned the shield into a shroud. Danny got life plus 80 years. I got the same. Danny died in federal custody in 2019. Liver failure. He didn't leave a message for me. He didn't leave a message for anyone. I am still here, 73 years old, writing this down because silence has finally become unbearable. You want to know what I think about? Not the money, not the arrests, not the commendations or the press conferences or the gold watch. I think about Teresa's mother collapsing at the gravesite. I think about Jerome's body in the trunk of that stolen car. I think about Salvatore's shoulders dropping when he saw our badges. And I think about the bullet on my wife's nightstand, the one I never explained, the one she still doesn't understand. She visits twice a year. We sit across a table in a room full of cameras and microphones. She asks if I'm eating. I ask if the roof ever got fixed. We never talk about the trial. We never talk about the bodies. We never talk about the bullet. That's the deal. Not forgiveness. Forgetting. I was a good detective. That's the truth that makes all the other truths unbearable. I was good at finding the truth, good at protecting people, good at the job I swore to do. And I was also good at the other thing, the thing I never swore to do, the thing I never confessed to anyone until now. If you're listening to this, if someone found these words and played them back, don't look for redemption in this story. There isn't any. There's just a man who started with good intentions and ended with blood on his hands. Not because he was a monster, because he was too weak to say no to the first envelope, and too ashamed to stop after the second. The badge is still in a box somewhere. My wife has it. She doesn't know what to do with it. Neither do I. I'm Michael Verone, former detective, former husband, former human being. And this is the only confession I will ever give.